Lay down. All right, so welcome everyone. I am your pastor, Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino airwalk, and this is Roots Revival Interfaith, where we believe in the three truths in the universe. That is astrology, numerology, and intuitive intelligence. These three truths will lead you down the right paths in life. They will help you with your healing and ultimately help you to build your character and integrity so you can go out and assist others in also finding their way. We are an interactive church, so I do encourage you to post your prayer and healing requests, and I do ask that everyone pray and manifest and send energy over each other's prayer and healing requests in the comment section. I do check the feed for about 2 weeks after a video uploads, so feel free, if you're watching this and it's already been published, to post your prayer and healing requests. We are also an interactive church, so I'm always taking your questions and comments at the end of service. However, I'm producing myself today, obviously. So what that means is I can only take your questions and comments if they're here in YouTube at Ask Ivy or one of my Facebook pages. All right. If anyone wants to help me out and transfer the questions over, if anyone comments or has a question on TikTok or Instagram, somebody here wants to help me out and move them over to YouTube or Facebook, I can read them that way. Thanks so much. I do want to ask everyone to please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment. Donations are appreciated, but not required, of course. And please share. All right. So today we are talking about how to let go of someone you love. This is a heavy topic, and I am doing a sort of part 2 to all of this. If you guys are interested, you may want to mark your calendars. I haven't even announced it yet, but it's going to be Sunday, April 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's called Selling Your Soul for a Connection. Selling your soul for a connection. How many people do you know who do this? And have you ever done this? Are you tempted to do this right now? That basically is going to be about, selling yourself out to be able to have some type of experience with someone else that you feel is of greater value or it's super special. It's a true connection. Sometimes it does go that way. Okay. And you can't be doing that. So we're going to talk about soul ties, karmic contracts, and past lives. All right. So that's our next church service. And again, that's April 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Let's hope she plays with her toys. So let's get into today. All right. How to let go of someone you love. Whether it be the end of a relationship with someone living, or you're mourning the loss of a loved one in spirit, or you're struggling with some type of an emotional attachment to someone living or deceased, or a relationship in general. This could even happen with other things like addiction. What our soul really wants in these situations where we're unable to let go is peace and an ability to move forward. If you've ever been stuck in a dynamic like this, you know that it's priceless to regain a sense of peace in your life. And even when you do, you can feel as though you can't really move forward. There's this haunting energy of this other person, this relationship, this thing is holding you back. So what we really need to gain skill in order to have peace, in order to move forward, is strength and clarity. Because typically with situations like this, we don't understand what is going on. Okay, you may be able to express yourself and say, this is overwhelming me, or I feel stuck, or I feel like I'm obsessed with this relationship, or I can't get over my grief, my sadness and my loss. You may be able to express that, but you don't really understand why it stays that way, where it came from, why it continues. All right. And without that, you really can't regain your strength. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. I'm going to help you regain your strength, your clarity, so that you can have peace and you can move forward. There is no exception to these rules. So, there's always going to be someone who, no matter what I post about this, instead of seeing it as inspirational or enlightenment or, a great set of tools that can be utilized, they're just putting the crying emojis and the boo-hoo and I'm a victim and I'll never get out of it. Yeah, you can, but you have to want to. Okay. So if you're not ready, this isn't going to work for you. But if you are, let's get into it. So the three different categories I mentioned here: relationships with the living. Okay. Someone is still alive and you're no longer with them or able to connect to them for whatever reasons. Maybe it's estrangement or it's a divorce, or maybe they have an addiction. Okay. There are a million reasons we can have someone that is alive and maybe even alive and well, yet we can't have that bond. We can't have that connection. For whatever reasons, the boundary is set there. And that can be more painful, research shows, than the actual death of that person and the deep levels of despair and mourning with that type of a connection can lead to higher rates of significant depression, anxiety disorders, and even suicide. So we want to be careful with this one. A lot of people say, well, they didn't die, or, well, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, or, well, and maybe it'll come back around. But when you have a division with a human being who is still alive, it is far, far more painful typically than, had they passed, because at least passing brings some level of closure. All right. I would also say that passing allows for people to communicate with their spirit loved one, through mediumship and things like that. And when you're trying to communicate through astral travel or telepathy or the meeting of the higher minds with someone who's alive, it can have a certain lack of fulfillment there. It's a lot of work for very little payout. And often we expect the payout to be that person coming back into our life, that attachment and connection being able to come back again since they are alive. And it doesn't always work that way. So we really find that the relationships that we have with someone who's still living that are the most difficult to overcome come with contracts and cords. Contracts mean that you signed a contract to work together with this person before you came to Earth. And it usually has a lot of past life connection, meaning you were together before. You may even work together again in the future, future lives. But in this life, it's dysfunctional. It's not working. And because you have this contract where you were supposed to be together doing something together, whether it be work related or romantic or, some kind of healing work, you have something called cords. Now, cords are the universe's way of keeping two people stuck together so they accomplish what they came here to do. Because humans will just wander off. Okay. Humans will just not do the work at all. So the cords keep two people in a contract together, stuck. And through cords, you can pull and tug at each other voluntarily, involuntarily. You can telepathically and energetically sort of manipulate the emotions and the thoughts of one another. This person you're missing in mourning may show up in your dreams. You may feel haunted by this person until you literally think you're going crazy. You'll see signs and symbols of them everywhere, people who look like them, their name popping up, things that only the two of you maybe shared are showing up all around you. And you will think, and this will go on an entire lifetime, you will think, well, that has to be the universe's way of telling me to reach out to them or telling me to let my boundary down, right? And it isn't, but it's very easy to feel that way when you have even the universe around you acknowledging this tremendous connection to this other person. Both people are aware of it, but typically in this day and age, both people are not ready for it. Both people are not willing to do the work. The work that would have to be done would have to be on each individual, meaning I work on myself, and through the work I do on myself, I can show up here for you and us. And there's usually one or two weak links in a contract that make it so that the cords keep the two of you connected, and it can lead to things like obsession, almost like an addiction to the other person, a lot of back and forth, but always toxic, no real progress in the relationship, typically leading in the most healthy outcome to something like no contact. If you want to learn more about that, I don't have time to get into it tonight. There's a class up on my website, Ivy Rivera psychicmedium.com or Ivy League psychicacademy.com. It's called Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting. Take a look. All right, let's talk about the other category, mourning the loss of a loved one in spirit. The people who have the most trouble with this, rightfully so, are going to be parents who lost a child, someone who lost their spouse when they were actually soulmates, they were actually in love with each other, or they had been together since they were quite young. And people who had a really great relationship with a parent, or if you didn't get what you needed out of that parent and your parent died. So those are the three big ones. But I see this a lot with people who lost a pet. And this could be also loss of a friend who was like family to you, if you have like a brotherly bond, a sisterly bond with someone. So you don't know who it's going to happen with, but you'll notice that the mourning of that person is different than the way you felt after other people passed. You can't let go of this one. Again, it's super depressing. It's kind of haunting you. It tends to linger. There's no real sense of progress in your grief process. Like, why am I not getting on to the other stages? Okay. And then the other category we're going to be talking about today, struggling with an emotional attachment. What do I mean by that? Well, that could look like codependency. That could look like attachment issues that you have developed over time. It often has something to do with your childhood or a lack thereof. This is something that needs to be treated, best case scenario, therapeutically, in addition to what I'm telling you today. So like, you may need mental health counseling on this. This one's a little more complicated. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Again, drop your questions and comments. Thank you everyone for being here. Please give this video a thumbs up. Any type of comment in the algorithm helps me out. Share, hit that like button and those hearts. I do appreciate you guys. Donations are appreciated, but not required. And I will be taking all of your prayer and healing requests, as well as your questions and comments at the end. But questions and comments need to be put either in YouTube at Ask Ivy or one of my Facebook pages. All right, that's the only way I can grab them up today, because I am publishing my producing. It's Mercury in retrograde. Okay, let's all pray. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so what goes on? Let's talk about relationships. Okay, category number one, meaning a relationship with the living. Why does this happen? That you could have a relationship with someone who's alive, and you're struggling to let go of it to a point of like obsession or despair. Well, we talked about some of the reasons why. Let's talk about some of the solutions. I remember being in brownies. Okay, so when I was little, I don't even know if brownies are still around. I'm assuming so. It was like, I think, the lowest level of Girl Scouts. I remember being in brownies and wearing my little brown sash and having my little pretzel snack and a little, Dixie cup of apple juice and singing with these girls and thinking, this is weird. Like, we're in a basement of a church doing something weird. Like, this is I felt like I was kind of in a cult, and it kind of is. And one of the things that they did there that just always rubbed me the wrong way, even though it could be fun sometimes, was they would say shit like, and they would make us sing it. It reminded me of church and the Pledge of Allegiance. It was weird. there would be this song, and it would be like, one friend's silver and the other's gold. Make new friends, but keep the old. One friend's silver and the other's gold. I was like, something about that rubbed me the wrong way. And I thought about it my whole life. Why is that? Now I know. Because that mentality is promoted by the government. It's promoted by religion. It's promoted by, these family structures that keep us stuck. And it teaches us that, having someone in your life is gold. And it almost suggests in a way that you can't replace them, or that the new friend in this situation is just silver, like they're lesser. And that is not the case, because the way actual relationships work with the living is that you could be with someone for 25 years and the relationship is trash. There could be no significant bond, but you could know someone for 2 weeks and it could be phenomenal, life-changing, a soul connection, right? That changes both of you forever, that lasts a lifetime. I mean, we can't go by these standards. There were other things that always rubbed me the wrong way that I heard in time, like there are plenty of fish in the sea, and even Esmeralda disagrees, right? She knows she eats fish every day. There are not plenty of fish in the sea, okay? There are a small, I want to say, handful of people, let's call them soulmates, soul tribe members, whatever, even karmic partners, where you are going to have a connection. You're going to have an immediate bond because you have comfort, you have attraction, you have passion, you have past life connection. You've done this before. You pick right back up where you left off. That doesn't happen every day. So there are plenty of like rotten old lame fish in the sea, but there aren't plenty of connections in the sea. There just aren't. And you cannot create a connection, nor can you ever break a connection. Okay. It is either there and it's effortless and undeniable, or, it isn't. And that's all she wrote. So that one always rubbed me the wrong way. Okay. The other thing we need to break in our way of thinking is like, out with the old, out with the old and in with the new. You really can't be doing this. Okay. We can't be throwing out. And I have to say this to my clients constantly, because we live in a day and age where it's like swipe, 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 swipe. Whatever, I'm talking to someone for a few weeks, whatever, there's got to be something better out there. Like everyone's just moving so fast that when the actual connections hit, whoosh, it just goes right over their head. They're not even really present. They're not even really mindful or paying attention or honoring it for what it needs to be. So, out with the old, in with the new, it's not going to work that way. And once you've done damage to a connection, it can be hard to repair, because they are so dynamic. So you don't get a free pass on this one. I would prefer that you start thinking of it this way. Let's get rid of those old mentalities. This will help you to move forward. Okay. When a bond is not working out, when a connection with someone else is not going to happen in your everyday life, and there has to be a division between you and this other person, you cannot be together for whatever reasons. Breakup, estrangement, alienation, what have you. Okay. Addiction. You need to think of it as an opportunity to clear out old energy so that new energy can come in, because that is in alignment with universal law. And everything in the universe requires a sacrifice. So it's like saying new level, new devil, right? Or every time the bus stops, somebody's got to get off. In order for a new door to open, another door has to close. That's true. That's universal law. So essentially what needs to happen is we need to make room for the new by letting go of the old. You could do that again through the cord cutting. You could do it through repeat ceremonies of letting go. You could do it by applying these tools we're talking about today and actively working to replace those thoughts of defeat and despair and depression. Okay. So making room for the new. Try to think of it that way instead. What is this? This is block removal. That's block removal. I'm always saying to you guys about everything that anytime you want to try something new, build something new, accomplish something, before you even start, don't bother. Don't bother with the manifestation. Don't bother. What you need to do, thank you, Demetrius, for becoming a member. I appreciate you so much. Welcome. If anyone else wants to become a YouTube member at Ask Ivy, hit the join button. What we're looking at here, with creation is always a need for block removal of whatever is already in the way, or else you're just going to tread water. You're going to be a mouse on a wheel. You're going to be wasting your time. Okay. So remove the blocks. In this case, a lot of the blocks, sadly, are, you and this connection you want back with this person. Okay. So remove the blocks and the new people can come in. Boop. I love you. I would also say don't be afraid to let go, to make room, because you fear nothing will come. All right. I'm not going to get into that. I basically just explained it, but here's what a lot of my clients have going on: an extreme paranoia that nothing better can come in. Because again, we've been raised in these societies that it's almost like a cult. It forces you to believe that blood is thicker than water. Till death do us part. One is silver and the other's gold. All these ideas that we can't replace what we once had. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Okay. But you have to be willing to believe that there are more people for you, that you can build your own family, right? Or expand upon your social group. I would often say that the friends we make in childhood or the family that we're born into, huge portion of the time, these were like practice people. These were like starter people. This was like a really bad group I wish I never had to see again for the rest of my life. Okay. Most of it. This is why a lot of people they don't have fun. They're not trying to go revisit their high school. That's a common experience, is that what you're kind of born into is like practice. Don't stop there. That's not all there is, okay? Even if society tries to force you to stay there to uphold the structure of society and feed the machine. So you need to deprogram from that way of thinking. Also, this one's hard. No one likes this. Don't come at me. But you may go through a dark night of the soul. I'm not going to sugarcoat. Is it really a dark night of the soul? Probably not. You're probably just feeling lonely and frustrated. But when it hits on that personal level, because it's a lack of connection with other human beings, it can strike something in your spirit that is incredibly dark. And it can be so agitating that you feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel ever coming. The pain can be relentless, the void unable to be filled. It's just an endless night of the soul. However, if you were to have to cut off from someone you had a significant connection with, or you have to leave your family or friends, or for whatever reasons you're starting over, it's a ballpark 1.5 year process. That's it. Okay. It feels forever, but it isn't. And if you're extraordinarily uncomfortable with that, like year to 1.5 years, think of it this way. It's a period of time where the universe has given you to kind of take a time out, catch your breath, cleanse out what wasn't working, okay, from your energy field. Think more about you and what you want in your relationships, what you have to offer, what you're deserving of having. Changes that you want to make. It's a time for you to get comfortable in your own energy and to start opening yourself up to appreciating other types of relationships instead of just the one that you just lost. For example, a lot of people aren't willing, if they lose some family members or they lose a spouse, they're not willing to think of friends and acquaintances as being people who can give them quality love, that they can have a meaningful exchange with. They're just not open to that. They have to have the same thing, or they have to replace that group of people or that type of relationship. Don't limit it. Don't do that. You're putting yourself in a prison. So 1.5 years gives you time to process all of this, and then to kind of get yourself out there and start mingling in the world again. I would also say, don't feel bad if it seems like a lot of work. I put up a free class here on YouTube at Ask Ivy called How to Make Friends. You can go watch that, but don't feel bad if you feel like you're trying and sometimes those things aren't working. Don't try so hard. Just show up and let it flow. The universe will always put on your path who you have connections with, who you're supposed to be working and building with. Okay. And that's often even through things like work or projects or your hobbies or random things like that. Okay. So it'll just happen naturally also. We need to also think about reminding ourselves, because of the level of despair, depression, and suicide, we need to remind ourselves of that time frame, that a year and a half, if the universe feels a year and a half is reasonable, then we need to see it that way as well. And we need to always have a marking point of where we are. I love Post-its. I love notes to myself. I leave love notes to myself. If I need an affirmation, I keep fortune cookies. I put them on my altar, wherever I'm going to be looking a lot. Wherever I talk to my ancestors, I got little things posted up there. You know what I mean? I need to remind myself of things, and deadlines and timelines are super important to the human experience. We need to know, okay, that things are changing, because they always are, but you have to be changing with it, or nothing. Okay. Bum kiss. Let's move on to category number 2. We're talking about mourning the loss of a loved one in spirit. Again, the most dynamic areas for this to happen, where you just can't seem to get over it. It's a crippling experience for you. This is typically with a parent to child loss, the loss of a parent you were close to, or loss of a spouse. But this is for anyone. Okay. Oh, meow. You're so pretty, mama. So here's what you could do, okay, to start working through that. First of all, don't play God. Don't forget that you're not God, that you can't control and come from a place of ego, even though your loved one passed. Ego is fear, manipulation, and control. You're trying to overreach. You're trying to control it. You're trying to play God and buy more time, or why did God do this to me? Or why did they have to die? Like, try to lay off all that, okay? Because you knew you were a human being. You knew they were a human being. You knew this meat suit is like a big problem. It's not going to last long. We know these things, okay? So I have to fix something here with TikTok. Hold on a second. What happened? Restricted? Is that TikTok's new way of hating me? I'm restricted because I said the D word. I'm not spelling things out or talking in baby talk. I don't care. I'm not using codes. If it dies, it dies. If you guys are on TikTok, I'm always telling you anyways, TikTok hates me. Okay, get off there. Go to YouTube at Ask Ivy. Okay, so, overreaching, you can do this with the living. If you're doing this with the dead, you are doing this with the living. You may have a tendency, just it's your personality, your character, to overreach, to overcompensate, to control relationships, okay? You need to let go. And death is one of the ways. It just reminds us that we are not, in control. We're not in control. Okay, so I jumped ahead a little bit. Sorry, again, Mercury in retrograde. I still want to talk a little bit more about relationships with the living. Now, what I just said applies very much to the deceased, and I will get to that. But I still want to talk a little bit more about relationships with the living. So when we can't detach from someone we can't be in connection with, and they're alive and we're sort of obsessed, that is what we're doing, right? On some level, we are coming from a place of ego, fear, manipulation, and control. We are overreaching. We are trying to play God, or we're trying to be like Mr. or Mrs. Fix-It with the relationship. This is a huge problem among my clients, and it's increasing every day. If you are in a relationship with other people, it is not your job to fix it. It's not your job to parent the relationship. It's not your job to run and manage the relationship. That means you're doing all the labor and you're enabling, and it's going to implode. That is a 100% guarantee. So what you could do in this case, if you find yourself doing this, is ask yourself, are they even coming to the table? Are they even actually, showing up? So if you want to work with someone else, if you want to break no contact, if you want to reconnect with them, if you want to see what maybe we could do with this relationship through its struggles, at the bare minimum, both people have to show up to the table and be willing to put in the work. Now, if both people show up and you guys can say, yeah, okay, I want to work on it. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I need from you. Here's a game plan. Perfect. Now we see if there's anything we could do about it. But if you're the only one showing up to that table, you really need to work on letting go of the ego. Let's talk about category number 3 with this. Okay. So relationships with the living. What is the difference between a government or religious or family idea of a contract versus the universe? I brought this up a little bit earlier. Say, for example, we're talking about a breakup, a divorce, a romantic connection that we simply cannot let go of. A lot of the problems people are having, men especially, are from societal programming. For example, men and women are both brought up in the patriarchy. That's a given. But the patriarchy teaches men that their highest prize is to essentially get a woman and then get her to do all this free labor for you. That's the ultimate score. That's how you get ahead in work. That's how you create a reputation for yourself that will help you with, networking. It's social capital. That's a fact. So when men find like the male loneliness epidemic, right? Or red pills, or what's that movie that just came out? Adolescence or something? I haven't watched it yet. It's all the same idea. It's men freaking out as the patriarchy goes down because they realize they can't get these women anymore. And if they don't have that, they have no sense of identity. They have no future. They have no one to help them heal and to process their emotions, okay, and create a life. And so it's pure devastation. And my male clients who get tied up in cycles like this, they will typically stay in a cycle like this for a minimum of 5 years, where they are latched onto the idea of this woman or this love partner that they want to be with. And this isn't really gender specific, okay? It's whatever for you, but that's a long time. That's a long time. And by the time they come out of it, feeling kind of out of touch, feeling a little weird, it can be hard to pick up. And it can be hard for other people to feel like they can relate to them as well, because people sense that as a red flag intuitively. Now we see the same thing with women, where women are trained up in the patriarchy to believe that their only value and worth is to get a man to want them and then to like have kids. And I don't know. I mean, that came back, from the days of us not being allowed to have bank accounts, which that goes back to 1978. I mean, I was born in 79. So our mothers, our grandmothers, they weren't allowed to have bank accounts. They weren't allowed to have businesses. They weren't allowed to own property without a man being there. So that entrapment cycle that's now, again, burning down in the revolution as we speak, it's leading a lot of women to feel that they were had, that it was all a con job, that Disney and true love and the fairy tale wedding and this princess idea of a man coming to rescue them and make them the chosen one, that it was never happening. It was never going to happen, that it's not coming. And that is leading to a tremendous sense of despair as well. But these contracts by society that are so meaningful are zip, zero, zilch in universal standards. The universe, and I always warn my clients when they're about to like get married, or they're asking, should I do this with an engagement, or, merging and cohabitation of the finances and all of this, or having a child with someone, I'm like, take it slow, because that is not a universal contract. The universe doesn't support those contracts. The government supports those contracts. The patriarchy wants those contracts. Catholicism wants, Christianity wants those contracts. But the universe does not care about a piece of paper that you and your spouse got from the government saying, till death do us part. It is not honored. It is not respected. The universe is going to continue to send you soulmates and other partners in your life that you were supposed to be interacting with, even while you're with this other person and you're locked in. Okay. So there's a dichotomy there. People feel like they're fraudulent. And while I don't support cheating by any means, I do understand why sometimes people feel trapped in a government marriage when another partner comes along and they can't explore it and they were supposed to by universal contract. So start examining the difference between societal programming on contracts and actual truthful universal contracts and where the real value lies. Okay, and that leads me to the rest of this, which is essentially whether you have estrangement with a family member, you have alienation from a child, again, you have a breakup or a divorce of some kind. You're maybe, not able to deal with a lot of family, because of the toxicity or the lack of growth and development or harmony, when things like this are ready to go. Those relationships have to be blocked. Boundaries have to be set, or you at least, need to take a significant break away. You want to remember that it is a societal construct to teach you that that's like evil or bad or wrong, or that your parents are always right, or that blood is thicker than water, that the parent to child bond is the most significant thing in the world. That's just a money-making tool by the government, right? So the universal structure of contracts says, take a break. If it isn't good for you, take a break. If it's unhealthy for you, set a boundary, okay? If you need to go no contact, go no contact. If you need to cut that cord, cut that cord. Sign off on that contract. Sign on to a new contract. Do it your own way. But at the root of all of this, you have to prioritize yourself. You have to center yourself. The universe only honors you holding yourself accountable and taking responsibility for the self-love, self-respect, self-honor that you have. If that's being compromised, that relationship has got to go. And if you don't abide by that, in whatever way you see fit, a break, a boundary, no contact, whatever it is, you're going to get universal karmic kickback, which means the rest of your life starts to go down the toilet really quickly. We're talking health, we're talking wealth, we're talking other relationships that maybe were really good. Opportunities don't come in, and you end up a mouse on a wheel wondering for like 10 years what went wrong, okay? So we also want to think about how taking a break can strengthen a bond. Society will say, never take a break. It's black and white. But the universe says there's nuance here, live in the gray. Taking a break can allow someone to grow, to change, to realize what they had, whatever it is. Sometimes that growth, most of the time, if a relationship is dysfunctional, that growth will never happen when the two people are in communication with each other. It cannot happen with you there. All right, so it's a healthy process to take a break. We see this increasing with parent-to-child dynamic. Moms, especially, moms told your main role in life, your only value is to have all these kids and have these great relationships with your kids. Well, we see alienation on a steep, incline. We see estrangement from Gen Z on an incline. We see that people don't want to, deal with their parents anymore. We see it in divorce and abuse. We see that These societal standards of telling women that their only value comes from having children. Women aren't having kids anymore, and the birth rate is rapidly dropping and about to be a huge, hilarious problem. I guess it's a problem. There are no more people being born. Women are waking up to that, and we need to continue, because that one in particular is super destructive. If you don't have the epitome of what it is to be a woman, you have these children, you have this great relationship with these children and these grandchildren and the rocking chairs and the porch, then you're nothing, right? That's dead, done, over with. So you need to investigate why you may be struggling with that estrangement, or having healthy detachment in that type of dynamic as well. So let's move on to loved ones in spirit. Here's something: if you are struggling to let go of a deceased loved one in spirit, remember that they have their own path. I recently dealt with a criminal investigations missing persons case where the male I was looking for was tragically murdered, and he was murdered essentially because he's on the spectrum, and it's a form of abuse, and I would even say a hate crime that isn't being discussed enough. When he came through in spirit, what he had me tell his mother, who was still looking for the body, we hadn't gotten the police to locate the body yet. So what I was telling her was that he was working with Emmett Till, Elijah McClain, George Floyd, and a bunch of other key players. And I thought, it's way too early for her to really have this resonate, but his passing, the way he was targeted, the way he was victimized, tragic as it is, the heartbreak she'll never really fully get over, but his passing was something he chose. All of us have our own life contract before we come to Earth. We come here and we agree to do certain things, and that includes our trials, our challenges, even our death. And he has these co-workers on the other side: Emmett Till, George Floyd, Elijah McClain. I mean, I was like, these are huge names. What is going on? This is his calling, and he will be one of the first that get internationally recognized as a victim of these hate crimes. It's going to involve the police. It's going to involve the EMTs who get in on it. It's going to involve, people on the streets. It's way bigger than what it seems, which is just that he was a victim and this is tragic. Yes, it is, but also this. Every one of our deceased loved ones has their own path. And we need to, as those that are left behind, right here on the earth plane, we need to help them manifest that path. And we need to celebrate that for them. And we need to do what we can from here in helping their legacy grow and live on. And we're not always called to do that in large. This mother is. And you should know whether or not that's part of your story with them. You may have trouble disconnecting from their passing and the loss and the grief of that aspect and evolving into working together in this new way, because you're not seeing it clearly in that way. You're not seeing that the work between the two of you is to continue. There are things that you will do here while they are there. That's something we commonly see with soulmate connections also. And that's really hard. That's a hard pill to swallow, because if you met a soulmate and it was romantic, you were deeply, deeply in love, and they passed really young, really early. They passed before their time. You may be saying, well, I knew it was too good to be true. I knew there was always something up, right? Or that person, they seem too good for this world. Well, it's true. But that doesn't mean that the work between the two of you doesn't continue. It's just that you're here most of the time and they're there most of the time. Okay. There's still an intermingling, even when you're awake and you're not trying. There's constant communication going on. So you're working together. I would also say, okay, number 2, no one is an extension of you. And if you take nothing else out of this today, take that. No one is an extension of you. Not your child, not your spouse, not your parent, not your dog. No one is an extension of you. We are born alone. We die alone. We are here to work together, when we have contracts with each other, especially, but that doesn't make them an extension of you. Okay. So stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Center yourself. This goes for survivor's guilt and that constant questioning of like, what else could I have done? What else should I have done? Why did this have to happen? And number 3 on this topic, learn mediumship. I'm so sick of hearing people complain. When we look at two human beings who are alive communicating, it's a two-way street. No one wants to be in a communication with someone who isn't listening or isn't an active listener or doesn't care. There's no reciprocity. There's no back and forth in communication. Nobody wants to do that. So why do you think it's okay to do that with the deceased? If you have a loved one who passed, why do you think it's okay for you to just passively sit here for the rest of your life and wait for them to come to you and talk and give you messages and birds and numbers and cater to you and show up in your dreams and pull all the weight? Communication is a two-way street. Learn mediumship. Okay? Learn it. It's a little complicated, but this is what we do here. Learn mediumship. Keep in mind too that the communication between you and your deceased loved one should be not necessarily more frequent, but definitely more in depth and intense. The visits and the dreams, especially if you're directly working with them, and you can ask them for things. Okay. So I call it death coaching. There's a class up on my website for this, right? But do death coaching, ask them for things. You actively say, show me this, send me this, let's spend some time together. And you sit for 20 minutes and you talk with them. There are a million things you could do to build that, but expect that the relationship, and this is hard to imagine, I know, but expect that the relationship and communication between you and this other person who is deceased is actually going to get stronger and more powerful as time goes on, not weaker. They don't fade away unless you let that happen. Also, you don't have the restriction of things like time, work, the car, bills, health issues. You don't have all these boundaries. When I go to get together with a friend, I tried to get together with this one friend. I messaged her yesterday and I was like, my God, how did we not get together? Oh yeah, because she got COVID. And then the time before that, I was sick and I couldn't make it to the party. And then it's like, when did 3 months pass and this girlfriend of mine and I cannot get together for a drink? This is ridiculous. So we scheduled it for this week. You know what I mean? But there's all these barriers that happen with the living that are not there once they have crossed. So try to celebrate that and work with that. Let's move on to the third category, which is if you have an unhealthy mental or emotional attachment. If you have an unhealthy mental or emotional attachment, some of the things you need to ask yourself here straight out of the gate to see if you have mental health problems or if you have maybe some need to do more shadow work or you have codependency issues. If you really want to figure out why you keep having these attachments to other people that are not healthy. Okay. Ask these questions. Number 1, are you afraid of growth? Are you terrified of change? Are you terrified of growth? Number 2, do you need to get some mental health care? Are you not able to fix this on your own? And they can give you the tools that you need possibly. Number 3, is loss a trigger for you? Loss in general, loss of a job, the threat of, loss to a house. Of course, it's going to be a trigger. These things are triggers to everyone. But, is this something you can't get over for the rest of your life that it happened, that you had a loss, that you got fired? having the loss or the threatened potential perceived loss, like somebody doesn't like you at work, right? Is loss in general, something being taken from you when you don't have control over it, is that a trigger for you? Are you neurodivergent? Those that are neurodivergent are more susceptible to being victimized by people, sociopaths, narcissists, manipulators. Neurodivergent people have a tendency to be incredibly intuitive, but also very empathic and very pure. And there's a lot of isolation that comes along with some of the social habits that are out of alignment with traditional societal standards. And so there's isolation there. So you're a prime target, you're a prime victim for people coming in, pretending that they're your soulmate, pretending that they're your bestie, taking advantage of your love, your care, your affection, and your boundaries are often out of whack. So, you can also ask yourself that question. Am I possibly neurodivergent? And that's why this is happening to me. Or I would also say neurodivergence, some, not all, have trouble disconnecting from situations like loss. Ask yourself here's a hard one, if your past trauma, neglect, whether it be in childhood or maybe a marriage, usually childhood and upbringing, if your past trauma and neglect, or if you are marginalized, people of color, women, LGBTQ, whatever it is, okay, if being marginalized has led you to struggle in this area, ask yourself if you have overlooked betrayal trauma. I'm so happy that this is getting more research. Betrayal trauma is supposedly one of the worst long-term effects. It has one of the biggest long-term effects on people's lives. We know that relational stress is the biggest stressor. We thought it was money and we thought it was all these other things, but no, it's relational stress. And within that, betrayal trauma is huge. Okay, so look into it. If you're not familiar with that, Google it. It's fairly new, but it breaks your trust. And so you may struggle to feel that if you let go of a connection, you can find a new connection. Get the tools you need to heal this. Ask yourself if you're lacking confidence. Do you say to yourself in your head, well, no one wants me. Well, no one else will want me. Well, I cannot replace this relationship. I'll be alone forever. I'll never find this again. That's maybe more of a self-esteem issue going on. Okay. Now, here's the trick. There is some truth to that. When we say that we'll never find this again, it's true. You may not find the exact identical bond that you had with someone else. Every human is an individual, so that's fair. But that doesn't mean you won't ever have connections again, if you're open to them. All right. And that's something we're going to be discussing in the next church service. I said, what did I say on that? That's April 13th. Okay. That's going to be selling your soul for a connection, soul ties, karmic contracts, and past lives. Okay. So we'll talk about that. We'll flesh that out more there. It's true, though, that you can't recreate what you have with someone else. But be realistic about that. Also ask yourself, what is your attachment style? If you don't know what your attachment style is, this may be the root of everything. Are you an avoidant? Are you secure? Do you have an insecure attachment style? Is it a combo? What's going on with that? Ask if you're expecting others' company, other people keeping you company in your life. If you're expecting them to just do the work for you. So do you lean into others? You're very close with a bunch of your family members, even if you don't feel like you are. You talk to them constantly. If you have a small group of friends, you're kind of always involved. You're always on the video games. You're always interacting. You're always doing something. assuming that these relationships, this company, will prevent you from having to do the inner work on yourself. Ask if you're doing that. Okay. That is most certainly escapist and avoidant. And that's the deeper issue. Let me fix TikTok because it's doing this puzzle thing now. Okay, I think I fixed it. Azzy. Did you guys say hello to Esmeralda? Esmeralda Marie Rivera, the pretty lady. We're going to wrap this up. Ask yourself if you can be if you could be alone or if you're codependent. Can I be alone? Can I be alone? Or is it almost like I feel like I'm dying? I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. I really am not comfortable being with myself for an extended period of time. I don't enjoy my own company. I cannot be alone. Libras. The low vibration on Libras. If you're codependent, it probably came from your family history. There's probably enmeshment there that you may want to look at. Okay. If you cannot be alone, you're likely avoiding shadow work, alchemy, taking your pain, transmuting it into power, learning the lessons from life. If you've ever hung out with anyone or you've ever dated anyone, and when you swap stories about things, you say to them, well, what did you learn from that? And they say, I don't know. Or you go, well, why did that happen? And they go, I don't know. Or you go, wow, that was a really intense breakup. What do you feel about that? I don't know. And you're like, what? You've had 5 years to analyze this. They're just, I don't know. Right? That's this. So it's enmeshment, it's codependency. I'm sure it comes from the family line. They're going nowhere fast. You have to alchemize. You have to do the work. You have to be with yourself. And that may be why these things are happening, is to force you to do that. Do you avoid self-development in general? Okay, so let's talk about some other real quick solutions here. And then I'm going to get your questions and comments. So some other solutions. If you feel that you are obsessing over an ex, if you feel like you are ready to let go of your boundaries or break no contact, or you feel like they're starting to show up in your dreams again, there are signs and symbols of them everywhere, whether they're pulling at you or you're pulling at them, or it's just the cords doing it, whatever. I want you to make a list of everything they did that pissed you off. I want you to make a list of how they did you dirty. I want a list of how they caused you pain, embarrassed you, set you back in life. Make a list. Make it dark, make it long, keep it in your pocket, okay? For maybe 6 months or so. Pull that thing out. Every time this person pops in your head, pull out that list. It'll trigger you right back into reality and setting a healthier boundary. Number 2, create a mantra or mantras, right? Affirmations, where you're saying something over and over and over again to yourself when you find yourself caught in a loop, caught in a cycle of despair or overreaching. And write these down too. Carry these in your pocket for 6 months or more if you need it. Number 3, when your brain starts to attack you, and it will, and it says things to you because not all your thoughts are legit, right? Your brain will say, you'll never find anyone. Or the loss of this person is devastating. You will never heal. Or you're going to die alone. Respond with something. Don't just be like, meh, I'm a deflated balloon. I'm taking a beating again. Respond back. Say to your brain, maybe I will. So what if I do? I guess we'll see. And would that be the worst thing? Or you could say doesn't everybody die alone? Find some way to combat it. Don't just sit there and take it. Number 4, if you have children and you're making questionable decisions about the desire you have for a connection with someone, or how you're not working through the grief, you're not alchemizing the pain, ask if you would want your children to get themselves stuck in that same situation. Would you want your kids to behave the way you're behaving? Or would you want them to try harder, to be happier, to have peace, to take their power back? If you don't have kids, think about, pretend, what if everyone could see my thoughts right now? What if everyone knew how I was acting right now? What if this level of being needy or pathetic or stuck, or I'm playing victim, or I don't want to put in the effort, I'm throwing a temper tantrum, or I preach about being evolved and being well and being healthy, but I'm not living it with this connection. What if everyone could see that? Because they can. Whether they say it or not, they can. That's why you're resisting everything and everyone. Okay? People read energy. Energy never lies. It cannot be hidden. So just try to imagine what that would look like if it was all exposed. I would also ask if what you are thinking and what you're doing, or the lack of effort that you're putting in, the loop you're stuck in, if this fits with your future self, the future goals you have for yourself, the future life you have for yourself, the life you're trying to live, your best self, your highest self, your lifestyle, right? You're a queen. You are in power. You are living a life of luxury. You manifest. Your cup runneth over. You're the lender, never the borrower. Everything comes to you. You don't chase, you attract, right? These ideas. You're the king. You don't get down off your throne for anyone, right? Whatever it is. Is that in alignment with this? These things you want, or this person that you want, does it fit with that? Try to stay future focused and cut off those thoughts from the past, because that's what they are. It's energy from the past, and it can prevent you from building forward. Okay. Hope this was helpful. I want to see if I have any questions or comments here. Hello, Esmeralda. Yeah, here she is, loving it, hamming it up. Chicken Mama says, great show. Thank you. You are welcome, Chicken Mama. Thank you for being here. Marie D says, a lot of men who become very suicidal when women do not like them, or they are getting divorced. They always say, I have nothing left. They value their life on having a wife or partner and nothing else. Well, that's the patriarchy. That's what the patriarchy has done to them. And they aren't working hard enough or fast enough to get out of it, because research shows that within the last decade, if a man was widowed or divorced or whatever, he had 2.5 years to remarry before he would get physically ill and die. Mostly widows. Now it's 8 months. So men are going downhill real fast with this. 100%. And again, we'll talk about that at the next church service. Selling your soul for a connection. We have another one here from Demetrius. Says, I'm so thankful for your ministry, Ivy. It has transformed my life for the better and empowered me in so many ways. You are a true light worker. Thank you, Demetrius. You're the cutest. I appreciate you as well. Okay. And thank you, Chicken Mama, for sending people over here with their questions. And I think that's all I can really get to here. Now, if you guys are watching this and it's published, or you're watching this and you're on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you can't get over here, once this publishes, go ahead and also drop your questions. Again, I check these for 2 weeks. So questions, comments, I'll be answering, prayer and healing requests. Okay. Drop them in the comment section. If you guys need to book a reading or a healing with me, go to ivyriverapsychicmedium.com, and I will see you guys for the next Roots Revival service, April 13th, 9 p.m. Eastern. That's Selling Your Soul for Connection, Soul Ties, Karmic Contracts, and Past Lives. But I will be doing my new free show, The Unbound Sage, delivering messages to you. That's going to air here on YouTube exclusively at Ask Ivy, April 1st at 12 p.m. Eastern. So if you haven't already gotten yourself eligible to win a free reading for that show, go ahead and do so now. All right. Thanks, everyone. Love you very much.